Caroline Crawford Patterson.
Yes.
Talk to me about the double name situation.
So,
Let's pause it. That was weird.
Oh, you
Caroline Crawford Patterson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Curious about the decision for the double name.
Yeah. Okay. So we can get straight into it. I didn't really make a decision before I got married that I was going to do a double name. I grew up not having the same last name as my mom. So I think I had an attachment to like being identified with my mom and my sisters, like as, like part of the family. And when I walked down the aisle and then afterwards somebody referred to me as like just Caroline Patterson. And then there was a comment about, like me switching to like a different family. And I just felt so out of place. Like I just sort of felt like I, am from a family of all girls. Like I identify with these women like as my family. Like I want to be identified with them. Like I don't want that part of me to like have to go away just because of like some old tradition. And as much as people just say it's like a name, at the end of the day, like men don't have to change their name. So they can't understand how sometimes like it does like affect your identity for like a little while. Like it can be confusing. And so I was like, I'm going to change my name to be a double name, no hyphen. That was a lesson I learned just because like for legal paperwork, especially online now, like hyphens are excluded characters. So people run into a lot of problems with hyphenated last names. And they end up going back and just like dropping that maiden name to begin with, and sticking with that married name altogether. So I did double last name, no hyphen. I had to petition the court for it.
Why?
They didn't like it. So
it was too long?
No. They were like, you didn't put it on your marriage certificate, which was BS because there's nowhere to put it on your marriage certificate. Like I think only in the state of California or something you can put what you want your last name to be. And then they were like, it's not on your birth certificate. And I was like, okay, it's my mom's legal last name, who is legally my mom on my birth certificate. And she said, or you can only have a name that is basically your dad's or your husband's. And so I had to petition the court. And my petition to that would be, if that's the case, then I think that everybody on their children's birth certificates should put your entire name. Like women should put their entire name, middle name, maiden name, everything, so that like your child at least has access to like all of those identities. It just raised a lot of questions for me. It was very confusing.
Wow.
It didn't make sense.
I didn't know.
It was crazy.
I'm team no name change.
Yeah. I'm just
not going to do it.
I don't think that people really should. I explained this to online. I was like, honestly, the reason that I even added Patterson was because growing up without the same last name as my mom and like having some of my siblings have different last names than me, always felt like I was like missing out on something. And so I had like some trauma from that. So I was like, I want to make sure that like school drop off, medicine, doctor's appointments, all of those things, like my kids and I have the same last name, but like I don't think that I necessarily have to pick or choose.
So did your husband also change his last name then?
He kept his. We had a long conversation about this. He's the third. So he's like, it's a whole other thing.
You couldn't change it. That makes sense. That makes sense. It's interesting because I just had a baby.
I know. Congratulations.
Thank you. Before I got married, we do things out of order.
Honestly, any order is a good order.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Baby obviously has dad's last name.
Yeah.
But a lot of people said something to me about that. My dad said that as well.
Yeah.
He said, well, when she's growing up, she's going to have a different last name than her mom. And how is that going to make her feel?
Right.
And you just even said that you have a little bit of trauma around it.
Yeah.
But for me, I got, I'm not even married yet, but married later in life, right? Having kids later in life. And just from my career.
First of all, you look like 25.
Thank you for that.
I'm like, wait, I was like trying to calculate what you're saying. I'm like, later in life, what do you mean?
Yeah, I started this company 12 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been a while. But approaching 40.
So continue. Yeah.
So my dad brought it up and my sister brought it up. And for some people, changing the last name is such a exciting moment. Like they cannot wait to take their partner's last name, which totally get that. Here for it.
Yeah.
For those people, excited for them. But for me, just where I am in my career, And I am Kelly Khalil. It's hard for me to.
You don't have to like detach from it. And you don't have to let people tell you that it's an easy detachment. Even the people that are the most excited to take their partner's last name go through like an emotional grieving process of that like previous identity. You're obviously still the same person, but like you cannot overlook the fact that like you are in your name. So like you have, like for women especially, I do think they go through this process even when they're excited to take their partner's last name, that they all of a sudden separate like who people knew them as, you know, with this one last name, like as a child, as like a young adult, as somebody in college, like your friends, all these experiences and all these memories, et cetera. And then like, then there's a subset of people that like refer to you as, you know, your married last name. And it's a strange adaptation, even if you're like over the moon for it. So like, I don't know. I think people that assume that they're not going to have any issue with it, like are shocked when they still do. It's not against your partner. It's just like, that is you. Like
it's a transition.
You've grown attached to your name. Like you've worked really hard probably to find success in your name, to find comfortability in your own skin and who you are and your personality, you know, and your friends who you're associated with. Like there's a lot there. So I don't think it's, you know, like it has to be mutually exclusive, that you're either like excited about it or you're just like screw it all together.
It's so funny because I have friends from college and right after college that, or even my friends from high school, friends I've had for like 20 something years. I still call them by their
Me too.
Their maiden name or their initials. Like I have a friend, Krista, I still call her KJ. Her last name now starts with an N, but I don't care. She's KJ forever. So it's like, it's interesting.
I like to think that they like it, but only because I like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm definitely like projecting onto them, but like when somebody calls me by like the name that I grew up with, I get like butterflies because it's like, you like know nostalgic. Me. Like you don't, like you're this, it's not this like person that's like all grown up and like mature. Not that I really am even that yet, but like, you know me at like my whole entirety. Like it feels like they just know a different level of you. Like it's a little bit like deeper of a knowing.
But you are kind of grown up and mature. You got married 2 years ago. More mature than me or more advanced in the game of life. And also you have a podcast. Honey, We're Home.
Honey, We're Home. Yeah. Myself and Nicole Pellegrino, which
I love Nicole. She was on our
fantastic.
podcast, OG.
Yes. We were literally just talking about this. We recorded this morning. We started this like last November and it's about being married in the city. And it is about that kind of like growing up while you're married situation, like maybe being a little bit younger for like a large metropolitan standards of like being married and like not having.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 26.
That is pretty young.
I think it's pretty young. My husband was 24, which is really young. I had lots of like, I was stressed about that for a while and we were in like premarital counseling and she at some point was like, you need to get over this. Like it doesn't matter.
That he's younger than you?
Yeah. Just like I'm the oldest for my grade and he's the youngest for his grade and we're one grade apart. So like we're in the same developmental stage. It's just like he's younger than me. And
you would have had to have a lot of therapy if you knew the age difference between me and my fiance.
Wait, tell me.
I'm 4 years older than him.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why it bothers me. Like
Are you triggered by me right now?
No, no, I think it was just the 24-year-old thing. Like I was like, he's very mature and like he doesn't, you know, like act young or whatever, but like it is young. You know what I mean?
But age gaps is a thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's more accepted when it's the other way. We had Emily Stomack and her husband, Michael, on the podcast. Yeah. Maybe last season.
Okay.
And her fiance or husband now, when they were planning their wedding, I think it's like a 14-year age gap.
Yeah.
But he's a model and he's got gray hair. And so he looks older. He's so handsome. He's very good looking. And they're goals as a couple. But they basically went viral on TikTok because of their age gap difference and people being so curious about it. But also it's so much more accepting when it's a older man.
So much more accepting. And that part to me, like I understand it in theory, like you're saying it takes men longer to mature, but like there are some men out there.
Men in the city, in New York City, it's like all bets are off.
Honestly, I'm kind of like, where did you guys get your like statistics for this? Because like there are some men that are older dating younger women and like it is because they're immature. Like there are some that are dating younger women because they're in love. Like it works both ways. Like sometimes like men are more mature for their age. Sometimes women are more mature for their age. And then sometimes it's like vice versa. But it is mind blowing to me that like the fact that a guy that's older dating a younger woman is like more acceptable, even though like quite often it's because like that guy is not ready to like stop partying and having fun yet.
Oh, it's true. Especially so relevant with your podcast being growing up married in the city, right? Like because dating in the city, in New York City, which is what I did in my 20s and 30s. And I always dated guys my age, or a little bit older.
Okay.
And I never found them to
Is your fiance the first person you dated younger than you?
I dated someone maybe like 6 months younger than me.
Okay, but but that's...
He was the first one I dated that was significantly younger.
Okay, I have a theory that the person that you date that is like unlike anybody else you've dated before, as I mean like totally polar opposite as what you would like sign yourself up for, like if you had to put your future husband on paper, is like the one you'll marry.
I mean, that's kind of what happened. So he was the exact opposite of, especially at the time that we met, he was the exact opposite of everything that I had been not even looking for, but what I was just gravitating towards.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I look at his characteristics of who he is, his commitment to he's so close with his family, like his attention to detail and things, like he's got such a big heart, like all of these amazing characteristics. That's what you want, right?
Yeah.
But what I was attracting was a totally different vibe of person.
Right. And then you're like hoping those things like develop with them over time or they're like deep down on the inside and they're not.
Yeah.
I know that we were going to talk a little bit about how like our spouses like balance us out. And I think that's one thing though, is that like it's important to have somebody that's like the yin to your yang in certain things. But the problem with like finding that person is what you need sometimes is so different than like who you are that you don't even know how to look for that. Like you're not even, how are you supposed to even identify what it is you're looking for?
I mean, literally, if you wrote down like my best strengths, it is the exact opposite of my fiance's strengths. Like, my strengths are 100% his weaknesses.
Like I think our value, if you wrote down our values, we would be like the same.
Yeah.
But if you wrote down like our strengths, like exactly, we're so opposite, but it's like, it has made us so much more like successful, like in life and with friendships and with relationships and with each other and with our families. Like it's wild. But it's polar opposite.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
in our neighborhood where we live, when I go out and go on a walk, I'm listening to a podcast. I'm like there to like connect with nature, deep breath. I'm like disconnecting, right? I have like a mission of what I'm doing. So I'm like on my walk, right? So I don't talk to the neighbors. I don't like, I'll wave, but that's it. My fiance in his phone has all of the neighbors. He doesn't remember their names.
He has everybody's number.
He has their phone numbers. Like they all know who he is. They all love him. He's so great. And it's funny because he doesn't remember their names, but I remember exactly their names and what house they are. But like, he's like, oh yeah, who lives there? I'm like, Jeff and Deb. He's like, but he has their numbers in their phone. He forgets their name, but like they all love him and they talk to him. He's got a relationship with them, but he can't remember their name. Meanwhile, I don't talk to them, but I know their names.
And which house number they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, that's incredible.
Yeah, our brains work completely different.
But then like you would be like so on an island by yourself without each other.
Yeah.
Because you like need both parts of that equation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're necessary to have the conversation.
Yeah. He'll be like, we need to ask the neighbor which house is it? The blue one with the whatever. I'm like, you have the relationship. You can't remember their name.
You can't remember. Like you bring the name, they bring the topic of conversation. Like that's the way it's working. It's like two parts to a whole.
Yeah. So we're very opposite in that. And I'm like so process oriented.
Okay.
Like I need a start, a middle, and an end to anything. A project, whatever it is. And he is the opposite. He likes to free flow. He likes to go with the flow. Yeah. That's how he gets his creative ideas, and I need constraints. Like I need okay, that's where my creativity comes from. When I know we have a budget, we have a timeline, I'm ready to go.
And that's how we're like, how do you guys plan vacations?
It's so funny you asked that because we just went on a vacation.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because we agreed collectively on where we wanted to go. We wanted to go to the south of France. That was like something we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be engaged in the south of France in 2020, but COVID canceled that.
I was supposed to be engaged in Paris in 2020. I feel your pain.
Okay,
COVID,
so we didn't have that.
So then you did like same thing. Then we did Paris.
Yeah. So we knew we wanted to go to Provence. That was like our vision, our goal. And then we had friends who were going to be in Ibiza. Okay. So we were like, okay, we know where we're going to end, and we're going to fly in through Paris because he has never been. Okay. And we'll fly out of Barcelona. So that was kind of like
great.
Set. So that was like set. We knew the places we wanted to go. So then where we're going to stay, how long, what restaurants, all of those things takes a lot of work. So I'm like, you know what? I don't have brain space.
Yeah.
Because all day long I make decisions. I don't want to research. I'm going to hire someone. You have decision
fatigue. Yeah.
Yes. I hired not the right person. The
person was not great. The idea to hire somebody because you're like, I have decision fatigue and this is not your strong suit.
Yeah. So I hired someone and then I said, hey, talk to my fiance because he's the one that's going to have all the opinions on like, this is good, this is not good. He's the one that has saved everything on Instagram and TikTok places he wants to go. Yeah. But he's not the one to like map out, we're going to go here on this day, that day. So we ended up working with this planner just to help us narrow down. And they were great in helping us narrow down the hotels. So they handled the hotels for us, which was great. But all the other in between of like the restaurants and those things, I create a Google Doc with an agenda. I book the flights. I put the flight. I mean, I turn it into a full brief of like,
it's a huge project.
On this day, we're going to be here. This is our flight. This is our hotel. Here's our confirmation number. Here's our rental car number. Yeah. Like I did all the main like start, middle, end, and the budget on that stuff.
Okay.
He then, this is his planning, which honestly, it worked out really well.
Right. That's the yin yang situation. Yeah.
Concierge of the hotel. What's the best restaurant? What's the best this? And then he looks at his list that he has from Instagram and he's like, oh, well, I researched this and I'm going to choose this one. Yeah. So that's how he did it. He was able to fill in the gaps and every restaurant we went to was beautiful.
So it's not so rigid. Like your trip isn't rigid.
Yeah. And I'm so rigid.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'd rather be rigid and pre-plan.
Right. And he'd rather just
go with the flow once we get there. But you cannot go with the flow
because
unless you have the other things planned.
That's what I'm saying. Is it like, how are you supposed to be relaxed if things aren't already coordinated for you? Like the fastest and easiest way to get stressed is to not have like made accommodations for yourself to make sure that you don't get stressed and overwhelmed.
Also, to me, what I've realized in traveling is things like rental cars or like booking like a day trip somewhere, or like we wanted to get a boat one day in Ibiza. Like if you don't do those things in advance,
you're not doing them at all.
So rewind.
Okay.
Before we were engaged, we went to the south of the Italian Riviera.
Okay.
We went to Positano, which I just have to say, I don't know. Have you been in Positano?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So, it's like very Instagrammable.
Right.
It's like I literally just saw like a top influencer got there, engaged there like this weekend.
Oh, I saw it.
It is the spot, right? Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yes.
So I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful. We're going to have a great time when we go. But then we got there and it was like Disneyland, meaning like so many people. Oh. Everyone is like it was so crowded. It didn't feel cute or charming or anything like that to me. It was like overrun.
Have you been to Montmartre in Paris?
No.
Oh, it's kind of like that. Yeah. It's like,
Same vibe. So now I avoid those places. I feel like Santorini is also like that in Greece.
Oh,
it's the same vibe where everyone goes.
Yeah.
And it looks so beautiful in photos, but people are there just for the photos, right? So it's like, so
and it's touristy. Not big enough of an area. The streets aren't big enough. The shops aren't big enough for like everyone to be there in peace.
And also it's just like, it's not authentic, right? It feels like it's a churn and burn. I literally
You're not getting the vacation experience.
Totally. I saw 5 couples wearing, this is 5 years ago, the exact outfit. Guys were wearing this like blue shirt and girls were wearing this like yellow checkered like dress with this wicker purse, this round wicker purse. And I finally stopped like the 5th couple I saw. I'm like, hi, like, what's this outfit thing? I was like, I didn't know. Is it like a really big influencer? Her and her partner took a photo. So they're all going to recreate this photo.
You can't be serious.
So it was not enjoyable for me. My point is, my fiance
Wait, I'm so glad you asked them.
Yeah, they told me. I was like, this is crazy. My fiance like, what's going on?
I would have been too scared to ask, but it would have haunted me to this day.
Why is everyone wearing the same outfit? That's why. And I think it was probably early influencer days. So maybe it was before people realized like you don't need to like literally recreate.
Right.
But this is quintessential. So we're in Positano and we wanted to go to Capri for the day, which is a boat trip. and he didn't book it in advance. So then they were all sold out.
Yeah.
And we're all the way over there.
Yeah.
And it was like we had to pay double to have like a little boat take us to. And for whatever reason, for me as the super pragmatic planner, I was enraged.
Because there is a difference between like paying a lot of money for something and then paying for like somebody's mistake, like physically paying for their mistake. Okay. Like that is an experience where you're just like, you can't get it out of your head that it didn't need to be that way.
Mm-hmm. So that's when we decided when we're planning vacations moving forward, we have to mutually agree upon the place and we have to book the accommodations first. And that's the most important thing. And then we can fill in the gaps with the go with the flow stuff.
We do a lot of that too. We prep for flexibility. Like we plan so that we're able to be relaxed, but like exactly like you're saying, like if you want to do something, then like you need to plan for it so that it's doable, you know, like because you might not go back there.
Yeah.
And so to find out that you can't do something or to even find out that there's something you would want to do on the last day.
Yeah.
Are you just going to keep telling yourself like next time we come back, we'll do it?
Yeah, totally.
There won't be one.
So when you planned your wedding, what was that division of decision making?
When we planned I got very lucky with this. And I think that part of it had to do with the fact that like, I'm a very like verbal person and I've always needed that in like a relationship. So like even though John, who's my husband, like came from a family of like all boys, like his mom is also very verbal. And so through the years, like I think he became accustomed to like sitting down and listening to me like explain stuff and also just like the patience of like figuring things out and making sure that things like looked a certain way that was like good for both of us. Like I'm not good at holding my tongue. So like I would get like very bad at it. Like
you seem very polite though.
Yeah, no. Like if something's bothering me, like I'm gonna let you know. Mm-hmm. And so when we were in premarital counseling, which I think I attribute like a lot of that to, like I was very open and honest about like the wedding planning process and like how I wanted it to look for me, which was like, I have no intention of getting to the end of this process and being like, I'm just ready for it to be done. Like if that happens, I'm going to be very disappointed. Like,
so you wanted to enjoy it.
I wanted to enjoy it. I knew I wanted a big wedding and I knew I really wanted to focus on like the creativity of it because like that is what drives me. And I was also very determined to like be able to have both. I was like, I want a wedding where it's allowed to be big and it's allowed to be beautiful and it doesn't take away from what's important, like which is the marriage. And so the process of planning this wedding, I don't want it to be negative. And so like, it's going to be a lot of work, XYZ. He laid out what he wanted. We were super on the same page. And then it was a conversation that was like, we're having an intentional conversation before this becomes a problem to like almost exposure therapy. This is how much work it is. And there was one incident where he said that he wanted something in our, like, I think it was our rehearsal dinner, so far past the point that anything could have been done about it. I just was like, are you kidding? I was like, if you have an idea, then you better come to me with that idea in a time frame that allots for it to be planned and executed. Like,
so is he the free floater too then?
He used to be. And so over time, he's just gotten like, he's good at planning, like he's good at logistics. I think now he sees like the value in it. And I think our wedding like was a turning point. So he would start to sit down with me every day and be like, what can I do? What helps? What's logistical here that I can take care of so that you can do, you know, like work on these ideas and then I'll revise this quote and then I'll whatever. Like it was a 2-party situation and we both were like, we're going to put everything that we have into this and do the best that we can. And then we'll have a drop dead date. And then we will have both known that we have done everything we possibly can to, you know, like make our dreams come true this weekend and have a great time for ourselves and our guests and our family and our friends. And there will be like nothing but pure excitement because we like worked together this like whole time. And that's where we got our like mix of like how we plan stuff together.
Planning of the wedding was really kind of like how you were planning your life.
Yeah. And now we're like, it gave us like a groove, but we like dedicated a lot of time to like figuring out how like we would work in tandem together with like those types of things. And it actually like applies to everything. Like we'll have a conversation even about finances and it's like very like problem solving or like brain oriented. And then like he he's like a great executor. Like I'm a great initiator and he's a great executor.
So funny. My fiance and I are the exact same. I'm like, I have the big picture ideas and he is so meticulous on getting things done. It gets done perfectly. And it's not that he doesn't have vision. He does have vision too.
100%.
But like I'm the one that's like, I want to do this and I want to do it now. Or I want to do it. And he's like, all right, I'll make it happen.
Those are more I remember talking about like roles of relationship roles like in premarital. And it was just such a funny conversation because like sometimes just generationally you're like, some of the conversations just don't apply to you in like the same way. Mm-hmm. Like we're like, listen, we help where we need help. Like we tell each other what percentage we're at and we like help each other, you know, get to 100 or whatever it is. Like we'd approach it differently, but like the roles thing still apply just in a different way. Like our relationship roles are a lot of like, what is your strength to my weakness to give like the best flow of operations, just like in life and decision making and like whatever it is. So like I personally loved the planning process. Like I thought it was like very fun because I got to have these big ideas and then he would like make sure that it happened.
And you got married in Charleston.
Yeah.
And
Charleston,
why?
2021. I'm from Charleston.
Oh, that's where you're originally from. Okay.
That is where I grew up. And so I knew that I wanted to get married there.
From when you got engaged to when your wedding was, what was that timeline?
The timeline itself was 11 months. The original timeline was supposed to be like 14, but our proposal got delayed because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And so I think that something's interesting about that is that I ended up doing a lot of the research to plan the wedding, like before we got engaged. Like we had to make a decision as a couple that was like, we know that we want to get married. Obviously, like we'd been ring shopping, all the romantic stuff like had happened. He like really didn't want COVID to jeopardize certain things about like our engagement, such as like my parents being able to be there, whatever it was. He didn't want to feel like rushed into doing it just so that we could get married like in May in Charleston. But he also didn't want me to feel rushed in planning certain aspects of the wedding, especially with like vendors, because he waited to do the proposal until my family could be there. And so we had a conversation and he was like, let's, you know, like start planning the wedding so that you don't feel like you got gypped on the timeline of the engagement. And you also don't have to get gypped on the proposal. And that's what worked.
So basically you weren't yet engaged, but you knew you were going to be engaged.
Yeah.
So you started planning. So that means you booked the venue.
Yeah.
Before you were engaged.
Yeah. And I got my dress, which is the one thing I didn't want to do.
Wait, pause.
Yeah.
I love how you buried that. Rewind. You got your wedding dress.
Yeah.
And your wedding venue.
Yeah.
Before you were engaged.
I actually bought my wedding dress the day I got engaged and I didn't know it was going to be the day I got engaged. I had no idea.
You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming. It's everyone. This is why I'm always like, everybody's different. So just like whatever, you know, works for you. In Charleston, even in 2020, wedding venues, like you needed to book a year and a half out. We just started running into all of these problems where we were like, we're not going to get pushed out of getting married in Charleston. We're also not going to get married on a plantation in Charleston, which is the majority of big wedding venues. We have very little options. The venue I got married at didn't even like exist as a venue like at that time. So like I had to go find something and that took 6 months of research to even find it. So I'm always thinking
about
how
did you find it?
Through the grapevine. Like I talked to a planner that referenced me to a different planner that referenced me to a site manager at a property like in North Charleston that accidentally thought I was talking about a property that didn't exist yet. And then like that it was crazy.
Oh, wow.
But I did it all before. I mean, it's just everything takes planning. And I think that was the lesson that we learned. We wanted to get married in May because we knew we wanted to move to New York later in the year. We had 3 siblings graduating that May. Couldn't get married on the days that they were graduating.
Oh, you had like a lot of
rules.
Restrictions.
We had so many restrictions.
Also in Charleston, it's really hard to get married in the summer months.
It's very difficult.
We just did an event there. I think it was mid-May. Yeah.
You know what? And I was there that day, but I had a welcome party.
Oh, you were at
for my
wedding.
Best friend at my house though.
Oh.
Like it was the same day.
But it was hot.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
so hot.
It was
so
hot.
that was mid-May.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Loverly Love is in Bloom event, I think it was. Yeah, it was so cute.
With waters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was at the hotel. The name is
Hotel Bennett?
It was at the Emmeline Hotel.
Oh.
Which is so chic, so cute. And it was an outdoor venue under this beautiful like glass house situation.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a glass house, but it wasn't. A greenhouse, but it wasn't. And I experienced Charleston for the first time, which
that was your first time.
Can't wait to go back.
Okay.
However,
yeah,
it was
so
hot and humid. And we had so many beautiful women there that are engaged. They all live there. They're all used to it. They showed up looking beautiful.
Yeah.
Full beat makeup. They all looked great. And they all were just like, yeah, we sweat here when it's
everybody's glistening.
They're glistening. That's what it is, glistening.
Everyone's glistening.
They were glistening. And for me, I'm not a glistener. So if I was getting married in Charleston, it would have to be when it's not glistening weather, which is unfortunately the South gets hot real fast.
I'm lucky that like being so psycho like fits into the narrative of my relationship well. Like I love an almanac. I will study the historical patterns of rain for days. Like I literally was like, what is it the average temperature year over year for each Saturday, in April, May, and June. And then least likely for precipitation, like historically speaking. And then I backed it out of the 3 graduations that I didn't want to overshadow. And then I backed it out of any graduations of the colleges in Charleston so people didn't have to experience heightened hotel prices. And I was like, this is our date, And like, if that means that I have to go looking for venues early or like whatever it is, honestly, great. And that's fun. And what I experienced was like, because like we weren't like properly engaged yet, there was like no pressure. Like I didn't feel like I was under a thumb or under the needle to like make a decision really quickly and like get on with it. Nobody was asking me. Like I didn't have a ring on my finger, so no one was bothering me. No one was like, when are you going to get married? Where's your venue? What's your date? Nobody cared because no one knew what I was doing.
That's real bride math though. I can just see the numbers and the dates going round in your head.
And it was great. And then I found my address, and I wasn't planning to find my address, but my mom like dragged me to a store.
In Charleston?
In Charleston. And I fell in love with something and I was like, I won't get it. And then like 3 weeks later, I was like, I can't stop thinking about it. I had it sent to this bridal salon in Charlotte. And at the time, like it was even hard to get an appointment at a bridal salon because it was COVID and only one person was allowed in at a time.
Wow, yeah.
And I like tried it on again and I was like, I also at the time, dresses, 12-month waiting, minimum.
Yep.
And then you had to pay extra to rush it. So I already had to rush it and I like wasn't even engaged.
Wow.
But the day I bought it, like that afternoon we got engaged.
Who was the designer? Where was the shop?
It was Ann Barge.
Oh, love Ann Barge.
And it was like really classic. It was really pretty. It was very unusual for her. It was the Bridezilla dress, but I love it. It was like an older dress even when I tried it on.
And have you like preserved it? What'd you do with your wedding dress?
Yeah, it's at my parents' house. It's far too big to fit in a New York apartment, literally anywhere.
It's so wild. My sister's wedding dress sat, I think, in my dad's house for like 8 years. And when she was moving from California to Colorado, my dad was like, you got to take your dress. Because
oh my God,
it's time. It's time to take your dress.
If my dad told me that, I would just cry.
I mean, she was moving into like a big house.
Oh, yeah,
in like a different state.
Still,
yeah.
I'd be
Similar
like,
thing.
What do you mean?
So looking back at your wedding, obviously it's been some time.
Yeah.
Like what were the highlights for you?
The highlight for me was how present I was all weekend without having to like sacrifice the things that I wanted. Like I think I really took an approach that was like, I'm not a chill bride, but I'm doing it so that like I can be a chill bride on the weekend of the wedding. And like relax and have fun. And John and I spent like every moment together. Like we really weren't separated a lot. And I know that that's like a fear for a lot of people. But we were both so involved in the planning, like it allowed for us to make sure that that didn't happen. And that everybody was like taken care of to an extent, that we did 3 days of activities. I think my favorite part is that we did the Thursday welcome party. Like I think it really allowed people in a more intimate setting, especially family members and bridal party and close friends, to get to know other sides. So like if you think about it on a bachelor, bachelorette party, like you're meeting everybody in the bachelor party, if you're in a wedding, or everyone in the bridesmaids party. And then kind of like over time, you're familiarized even throughout the weekend with the other members of the bridal party. But your significant other is never really introduced to like the bridal party or their significant others. And their significant others are the ones that are hanging out the whole time.
Yeah.
So like they should really get an opportunity to like get to know each other. And I felt like that's what Thursday night did. Even for like aunts and uncles and other family members, is like everybody got acquainted and had a good loose time and like caught the vibe of the weekend and was very uplifting and positive. So then on Friday night, it's kind of like their second time meeting versus their first. Mm-hmm. And so then they get like that second round of conversation. And it's a little more like loosey-goosey, a little relaxed. Mm-hmm. And by Saturday, it's like everybody knows each other. Mm-hmm. Like they don't need to pester the bride and the groom because A, they've already had an opportunity to like speak to you. And B, they found other people to hang out with that they like. Yeah. And so everyone's sort of just doing whatever like fits their vibe at the moment and having fun. And in a really good way, they're like not really concerned with you as the couple. Mm. So I liked that.
Yeah, I think that destination weddings really like create that opportunity for people to connect. And so I know you're from the area, but were a lot of your guests coming in from out of town?
Most of our guests were from out of town. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a huge thing. Yeah.
So you were able to kind of create this experience for them over a few days, which I think is so special.
I agree. And if people are a little more, and I get that, like people are a little more willing to do back-to-back days of events or like make the effort to show up to each event when they don't live in the area because they've already traveled from out of town for you. Yeah.
They're here for that weekend.
Exactly. Versus just like, driving down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, if any, lowlights, or if there was something that you could redo for your wedding, looking back?
Two things. They're both logistical though. I would have done a walkthrough of my entire ceremony and reception vibe. Like I would have sent somebody like over FaceTime just to do things, just because like as detailed as I was, like sometimes like you see stuff come to life and your brain just wants to edit it a little bit. And like you can't do that when you're walking down the aisle.
Rewind.
Okay.
Did you hire a planner?
Yes, I had a planner.
So you had your planner there, but you're saying design-wise, you wanted to tweak things.
So our planner was like a design coordinator. So like I booked all of our vendors, like et cetera. And our planner was like super aware of everything that was going on and like super involved in the process. But like I spearheaded everything still. I think that like as the bride, sometimes like, or as somebody just even creative at all, like if you have a creative friend, the planner is so focused on the day of your wedding with making sure that the run of show goes smoothly. They're just like, they're not going to sit there with the fine tooth comb and be like, wait, let's try that there.
I think maybe for you, you had the creative vision for this. So this was your creative masterpiece.
Right.
Right. And so wanting to be able to come in and like do those last minute tweaks and edits. Because there are some planners that are like the full design and that's what they do.
Everything.
And I've spoken to brides who are like, show up and just want to be surprised. Sounds like that's not
me.
That's your vibe.
But someone, even having a bridesmaids do it. Like I was at a friend's wedding last year and I knew that the bride just had faith that like she had enough like type A friends and a great planner to just like make sure that everything was like as it was. And the planner was great, but she was very concerned with run of show on the day of the wedding. And the day before, it's like we're doing the practice of the walk in and the walk out. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. There are flowers in the aisle, but we're still doing it this way. And I'm like, I ended up saying something. And then the next day, I went out to do like a walkthrough and the flowers were so tall. I was like, there's no way that the bridal party will be able to get out into the aisle from here. Like the entrance and exit is going to cause confusion and delay, especially for the groom's party. And like, she just like, I went to the planner and I was like, I do not want to step on your toes. But like there's a very small detail that's going to like cause an interruption in the ceremony and it's just not worth it. And she was like, okay, like that makes perfect sense. Communicate to everybody to like switch the walkout, like rehearse it, whatever. Like I got the bridal party and I did it. And the planner was great at her job. It's just that like sometimes there are little things that when you see it come to life, like she didn't realize how tall the flowers were going to be or how full that they were going to be, or that instead of just being at the edge of the aisle pew, they would be in the middle of the aisle pew. So like it's impossible to get 150 people like on the same page.
Unless you have that like last minute walkthrough.
Right. Yeah. Someone should do a walkthrough, just like another set of eyes on it to be like, is there something out of place here? Like, is there something that like needs to be edited? Because like the planner should be doing her job in that moment, which is like managing a crap ton of people. So that's
number one.
Yeah, that's number two. Number two is florals. Like I would have given width, height of my florals, like numbers. Florists never ask you for that.
So how wide you want them to be and how high you want them to be. So were yours under or over what you expected?
Mine were under. And I just would have come up with different ideas. Like I would have been like, let's use flower frogs to do this and make it more asymmetrical versus like these bud vases, etc. And then for the bouquets specifically, like things just get lost in translation. So like they're looking at something as like a piece of art. You're looking at it as a part of an ensemble. And so it's important that like you communicate the things that are needed for it to work with the part of the ensemble. Like even your bouquet, like I am like, if my bouquet should have been an inch smaller than the circumference of my waist, so that like the middle of my dress was never fully like hidden. And I just mean to the point of the silhouette, like in photos versus like, but like, why would they know that? You know what I mean? Like they're looking at a beautiful arrangement and they're like,
you sound extremely detail oriented.
Oh yeah. No, I'm like crazy.
I don't know how many brides would think about that, but that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
For your photos to see what is the composition of that image, right? If your bouquet is huge and it's covering what you can't even see.
Your silhouette.
Yeah.
And like, and I'm just like thinking about specific moments. It's like you want that photo of you walking down the aisle and your florals look beautiful. But like, what did you pick your dress for? You know, if you like the silhouette of your dress, and it's important that it like shows and that you love every part of that photo. And the bouquet is a part of the ensemble. And when it stands alone, it's going to look beautiful, of course, regardless, because if, you know, your florist invest in it like a piece of art. But like there are other pieces to the puzzle. So I would have said things like that, or like measured the stem length of like what I wanted for my bridesmaids' bouquets. Like I would have made it a little bit longer. Though my things were like detail oriented, where it's kind of like you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
But I definitely
I was going to say you really don't know that until you go through it. And then you're like,
no idea.
Those are very specific.
Right. And a planner is not going to tell you to do those things because it pisses off the florist. Like the florist doesn't love it.
They don't love it.
No, they don't love it. But like,
did you get a trial? Did you see your flowers before? Did you get a sense of it? Yeah. Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes some weddings, especially if it's very seasonal, like it's whatever flowers are available. So you get a vibe of what it's going to be. But when they go to the flower market, 2 days before, they might not have that exact floral, but you could find something. Yeah. With a similar texture or similar color to give you the overall vibe of what you're going for.
Yeah.
But you can't be, some people want specific florals. And if you want to pay for that, then you're going to have to fly that flower. And that's going to be
incredibly expensive. Yeah. I didn't get a trial bouquet. My wedding bouquet was so beautiful. My mom lost it.
What do you mean?
I don't know. It's just like, it just wasn't, she like took it to like keep it. I was like going to decide what to do with it. And then it was just like gone the next day. I think she just like literally left it at the venue.
That might be regret number 3.
Yeah, I hold that over her head.
Perhaps what you should do is call the florist and have them remake you one, just so you can have it.
Literally.
Because there's cute stuff you could do now, like preserving it. Like I've seen the little frames.
So I was like, I'm going to come up with something. Like something. Like you could do something 3D floral with it, or just like have everything pressed into a cool art installation and whatever. I've
seen those on Instagram and they actually look pretty cute.
I think so too. What are you going to do with yours?
Oh gosh, let's see. First, let's start with when am I going to have a wedding?
Yeah.
And where and what and how. I don't know. At this point, like I have to hit like reset on the whole like inspo of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to think about it.
Enough time has passed.
Yeah.
And the industry has just like flipped on its head.
It keeps changing.
Yeah.
And so I almost feel like it's on brand to be perpetually engaged.
Yeah.
And And then maybe like as a surprise in the future, we'll be like, we're going to get married.
You're always relevant.
Yeah.
You're always planning, always in the stage.
Well, and we had a really big engagement party, which to me felt like the wedding, right? I had like 3 looks. I changed my outfit a bunch of times. We had a cake. We had amazing food. A lot of our friends and family. I think it was like 120 people.
Wait, don't you think everybody should have an engagement party?
I mean, if you can carve it out in the budget, I think absolutely. Because I think to your point earlier about the wedding weekend where people get to connect and get to know each other over a period of time, I think the engagement party actually is that first moment where both sides of the family and friends get to meet for the first time.
Yeah.
And at our engagement party is the first time my parents met his parents.
See?
And so, because I mean, we're New York, California, so we couldn't be on opposite, very, very far apart. So, you know, they got to meet like 3 or 4 days before the engagement party. And then, you know, that's how our friends and family got to connect. Yeah.
I think it's like, if you can do it, if you can find it in the schedule to do stuff like that, like it's really nice. And I think a good friend tip or like bridesmaids tip or groomsmen tip or like whatever is like, if you know your friends are bogged down with scheduling and costs and whatever, like group together and figure out how to do something for them. Because like it is the first moment where they both just get to be at their own party. Like the proposal, you know, like you're not aware of what's happening until it's happening. They've been planning it for a long time. They're very nervous. They're nervous about the run of show. They're nervous about how everything's going to play out. There are a million different like logistics. You know, kind of like show up to a party that you don't even know is happening. And it's just a very specific feeling. You can't like recreate that feeling. But the engagement party is sort of like you get to prepare for it and then you get to be a guest at it versus like you're not really a guest at your own wedding.
Yeah.
So it's like the one party I don't know, it's a little more relaxed and it really makes it very real for you.
Well, at an engagement party, it can come in a bunch of forms. It could be, hey, we're all going to be at this bar. Like,
I love those.
And then have everyone just show up and like have a cocktail hour.
I love those.
It doesn't need to be like a full blown like party plan, the whole thing. But it's a great opportunity for both sides to meet and mix.
I agree. Even if you have a lot of friends in your city, 100% do that. Like that's great.
So you got married on the younger side, but now I imagine a lot of your friends are getting married and so you're a guest or a bridesmaid at a bunch of weddings.
Yeah,
how many are you going to this year?
Not nearly as many as some of my friends. I think 4.
That's still a good amount.
Yeah. I think and that's like I'm comfortable with that. I know some people that are like 11 though.
Yeah.
11, 13, 15.
I have a very good guy friend who is everyone's very good guy friend. And this summer, him and I met. We were roommates. We lived together in Nolita.
Oh.
And that summer, when he moved in, it was like every week he got a wedding invite. He got invited to 14 weddings that summer.
Did he say no to any of them?
I think he went to a lot of them, but he's also a travel guy. So he wants a reason to like get on a plane and like he's super social. But I think in my life, I've been invited to maybe 10 weddings.
Yeah.
14 in a summer.
I can't imagine that.
I mean,
not
the
enough
cost
people
of that
like
alone.
me for that.
I know. I'm like, I'm not that good of friends with that many people. So
I'm like, I'm not making that list. But
now that you are on the other side of things and you're going to weddings, like
I love weddings.
You love them.
Oh, I love them. Like I love being a guest. I love being a bridesmaid. I love when John is, you know, in the wedding. And like, I just enjoy weddings. Like I enjoy the planning. I enjoy being helpful. Like I enjoy like seeing people's love. Like I think it's just really like I do have beef with people that get like really annoyed about weddings. Like not the normal stuff. Like scheduling, totally get it. Costs, totally get it. But like people that are just like in general like negative about like another wedding, as I'm kind of like, okay, well, maybe don't go, because the people that are there are what sets the vibe more than anything.
Totally.
You could have the ugliest or the prettiest wedding in the entire world, and the only thing that's going to make it good is the vibe of the couple and the vibe of the guests. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, show up with a smile on your face. Like be honored to be there. Like they really wanted you there. Mm-hmm. Like they were willing to plan around you being there, you know? So like bring that attitude.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because one of the hardest parts of planning is curating the guest list.
So difficult.
And you're exactly right. Who you invite really sets the tone of things. And unfortunately, when it comes to the wedding guest list, sometimes you have to invite people that maybe wouldn't be number one on your list, but because they're cuspies, or it's a family member that is really important to your parents that they're there. And
that always happens.
It always happens.
Yeah.
And I find that the drama of weddings oftentimes can stem from the guests.
Yeah. 100%. I also think like just control what you can control of it. Like I have always said this, like I think that as a couple, you're allowed to do whatever it is that is best for you, but it doesn't mean that you need to do it meanly. Like it doesn't give you license to be like an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, like do whatever you want, but do it nicely. Do it respectfully. Like I wanted to walk myself down the aisle. I didn't tell my dads to like F off. You know, like my dad and my stepdad, like it wasn't about that. It was about something else. So like I'm allowed to do whatever I want, but I still have an obligation to respect the people that it affects and like deliver it kindly and like make sure it's for the right reasons. When you're inviting people, like don't take that as like your excuse to like cut all these people from the list because like you know, are like, well, I'm not that close to them, whatever. Like you have to do analysis. If like there are friends where it's like, you are closer to 4 out of 5 people of that friend group, is it worth it for you to not invite that 5th person?
Yep.
And if you have huge space restraints, then 100%. But the whole point is just like do a pro-con analysis. If you don't have a space restraint, if you don't have a budget restraint, if you know that those people are going to be really excited to see each other, you know, if it's going to be—
You don't want to unnecessarily hurt people's feelings.
Right. If it's not going to impact your space or your budget or your weekend, then it is almost easier to say like, let's invite them because they're not going to take away from my time, you know, unless that person's obviously like mean to you or, you know, whatever it is, like you don't have to roll over for somebody that's like, you know, not nice, but like, yeah, it's almost easier to be nice.
We always tell couples to prioritize the list by like A list, B list, C list.
Yes.
And
Love that
literally,
advice.
like we built the Loverly. We have a guest list manager on Loverly. It's a tool that you can tag people based on, oh, my family, my fiance's family, my friends. So you can kind of filter the list looking at it that way. And also by like priority, A, B, C, D. Because I was just speaking to a bride earlier today and she invited a lot of people and surprisingly they're not RSVPing. People can't attend. And so you might need to go to your B list or your C list, which it's not meant to be like, oh, you're not as important, but as space.
No. And you shouldn't, as a guest, never take it that way. Never take it that way. Like every bride has a different venue with a different head count, with a different budget, with a different catering estimate, like with a different bar estimate per person. Like, listen, like everything is very different. Like there's a lot of context that none of us know unless it's our own wedding. You could be the maid of honor and you still wouldn't know all of the important context. Like never take that personally.
I've experienced it personally during COVID when a good friend of mine, she wanted to get married during 2020. She was like, didn't want to reschedule her wedding. And unfortunately in New York, there was like a number of people that you could have.
One of my best friends did that too. And
it was like at first it was 20, then it was like 40, then it was 60. And so as they were increasing the number of allotted legal leave to be at an event, she was like increasing
the guest list.
And then they opened it up to a number, like it was like 2 weeks for the wedding. And she's like, I can't replan my, so she kind of like froze it there. And I didn't make that cut. I was not offended by it because it was like 65 people.
Yeah, you can't.
It's like so small.
You can't. I was just talking about this other day. I have a friend that had to do that. And I'm like, seriously, like anybody that was going to bully her for that decision is like, you're not aware of how much stress and angst already went into what she had to do. Obviously, it wasn't her first choice. She made the best of a bad situation. And honestly, it probably worked out for the best. And they had probably a wonderful time.
It looked amazing. It was beautiful.
Intimate, everything. But like you know, like don't be offended. It's not personal.
And something that's really interesting about guest lists too. So when I got engaged 4 years ago, first thing we did was start to build that guest list.
Yeah.
And I'm curious for you, now that you've been married 3 years, are there people that made your guest list
Yeah.
that you maybe wouldn't have invited today?
I think like a few. We actually recently had this conversation. There are a few, and it's for no other reason than just like sometimes like the older you get, there's like a mutual understanding. It's like obviously we haven't hung out in years. And it's like I wouldn't be on yours and you probably like wouldn't be on mine. And there's nothing offensive about it. You know what I mean? But that's definitely 100% true.
It's just something I think about because I still have that Google spreadsheet from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I laugh because there's probably, I'd say like not a huge number, but 10% of people that as I moved out of New York City, which I lived here for, 10 years.
Yeah, I moved. That really was like.
When I left the city, some of the relationships I thought that I had that were so close.
Oh, yeah.
I realized that I actually wasn't that good of friends with the person. It was a relationship of convenience.
Was that hard? That's sometimes it's a hard. I
think about it and it makes me sad because I'm like, because I still try to make the effort, but I'm like, now that I'm
going to be honest, it's like really hard. That's a really hard.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of make you like second guess like new friendships, like, or maybe you just like invest in them like a little bit more because you just become sad that like you put a lot into something and then to realize like it wasn't necessarily what you thought it was and to be like, how did I miss that?
Yeah, but I also think there's friendships in seasons
100%.
and they kind of come and go. So I've had friends I was super close with early in high school and then like we kind of fell out like in early 20s, early 30s and now have kind of reconnected.
Wait, I like that.
So it does come full circle.
Yeah.
So you might be surprised at those. And that's where, again, looking at that, who am I inviting to my wedding? When you're looking at that criteria, you kind of need to look at the longevity of that relationship.
I agree. I think a lot of people would probably disagree with us just based on like trends, which are like, have boundaries, stand up for your boundaries. Like, like there's like a lot of narrative around that. And I'm not saying there's not like some valor to it, but like the longevity of a relationship, like assess a situation, like seriously, like analyze it. Like if someone's been in your life for a really long time and that relationship could come back full circle, it's like, that is important. Like tenure almost is valid. Like don't.
It is true. And with my engagement party, I ended up inviting those people.
Yeah. And they showed up for you, I'm sure.
They showed up for
you.
And our relationship from that moment on, from the engagement, has become closer again. Yeah. And so I think they felt, seen. They felt seen that I recognized that the role of their friendship in my life was so really important and that I wanted them to be there at this special moment.
Those people listen, you might not talk every day, but those people are so critical to your like lifelong experience of friendship and relationship and like girlhood, honestly, that like you're not doing yourself a service by overlooking it. Like, just to focus on what everyone's talking about like in the media.
I think you're right because there is a narrative around boundaries, like be really tight on your list. You don't talk to them in 6 months. I mean, those are all good rules, but I agree that longevity is so important.
Yeah, I would push back against that a little bit. I would say like, I get it, but like think about it beyond what, like you're just believing what other people are saying. Like it might not necessarily be as true as you think it is.
Relationships obviously is something that you're so passionate about.
Yeah.
Your relationship in your planning process. And now you get to talk about that once a week with Nicole.
Yes, it's fantastic. We release episodes every Tuesday. It's Honey, We're Home. Honestly, like we try to attack conversations that are very real, like despite the fact that a lot of us, try to hide from them, like whether it's an archaic conversation or a new conversation or just sort of like figuring out how stuff works or like allowing ourselves the room to like continue to grow up and become adults, even though we're like already married and not push ourselves too hard into this expectation of like how it's supposed to look versus like how it looks, which is for millennials, like I think a big struggle right now. Like we're not in the stage of life necessarily that like our parents were maybe at.
Or
like
we thought that we would be.
When we got married, whether it's like career, financially, family, age, owning a house, whatever it is. And like we just try to embrace those conversations in a new way and also just sort of like have a little bit of camaraderie around this like unanimous feeling that we're all having. But it's fun. It's a really good time.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on here today and sharing some of your POV. And I want to share your wedding photos so that everyone here can see.
Yes, 100%.
Even though it was a couple years ago, it's still classic.
Thank you. I actually am so proud of that. Thank you.
You did good.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a surprise for me, and I'm very excited about it.
This has been the Loverly Wedding Podcast. We are hosted by Kelly Khalil, produced by Shaylin Carroll, Kayla Fitzgerald, Emily Feig, and Jennifer Alvarado. Watch the podcast on YouTube by subscribing to our channel, and follow us and listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, and every major RSS feed.